Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis is the author of the Chronicles of Narnia book series. Sequel The Voyage of the Dawn Treader has been published as book number 3 in a series that includes 7 installments. One of his letters suggests a different reading sequence than what was published, therefore this sequel should be read as the 5th in a series from the Chronicles of Narnia. The writing style of The Voyage of the Dawn Treader differs from the preceding sequels in an interesting way. Throughout the book, the author does an excellent job of describing the action so that readers may follow along in their own imaginations and only be limited by their own imaginations. Furthermore, this work is loaded with beautiful descriptions of the sea, no matter how quiet or stormy it is. The Caspian and his rule over Narnia are again portrayed in this sequel, although this time the major characters are Lucy and Edmund. Because they'd already grown up, it's likely that Susan and Peter weren't included in the opening of the novel. Because of Caspian's desire to find his father's 7 comrades, who were dispatched on an expedition by his uncle Miraz to the uncharted East Seas, past the secluded islands, the story is primarily set on board the Dawn Treader ship. During his coronation ceremony, Caspian promised Aslan that after restoring order in Narnia, he would set sail towards the east in search of his father's friends, learn the truth about their deaths, and exact vengeance. New character Eustace joins Lucy and Edmund on the Caspian's ship, arriving just in time for the start of the journey. The sea is the most crucial symbol in the film because it is the setting for the most of the action. A bridge connecting 2 worlds can also be found here. At its most expansive, the sea is only visible to the human eye, a site of transformation and bonding. If we keep in mind that the East is presented in human consciousness as the origin and the beginning of the world, then the travel to the East is also symbolic. You could see it as an attempt to reach the source of all that is good and righteous, which is the light. Thus, the Dawn Treader's crew meets a variety of magically enchanted, imprisoned, or otherwise disenchanted characters while sailing, and they gain a great deal of knowledge and experience by doing good deeds and providing joy to others. Theme: Wish Caspian's of finding the 7 friends of his father, who were sent by his uncle Miraz on the expedition into the unknown areas of the East Seas behind the secluded islands. Idea: Good triumphs over evil, with the potential to help the reader make a connection with himself in order to grow a stronger and more powerful sense. Good and its strength are emphasized, but previous wrongdoings are also avenged. Lewis begins this story with the introduction of a new character, one who is radically different from the other characters already depicted in the Chronicles, the feisty ones who are always eager about new locations and adventures. When the 4 Pevensies seized Narnia, Eustace Clarence Scrub was their cousin. Even though Eustace disliked his relatives, he was overjoyed to learn that Lucy and Edmund would be staying with them for an extended amount of time. To prepare for an exam, Peter planned to spend his vacations studying, while Susan traveled to America with Lucy and Edmund. A trip to America will benefit her more than her younger siblings, according to her mother. The finale of this tale occurs when Edmund and Lucy find a little period of time to spend together. They sat on Lucy's bed and looked at a painting on the other side of the room. Out of all the paintings in the house, that was the only one they genuinely liked. The picture depicted a ship moving in the viewer's general direction. With the shape of a dragon's mouth, the tip of the stem was covered in gold. A rich hue of purple was used to dye the ship's only pole and one enormous squared sail. The ship's exterior was painted green. In a flash, Eustace burst into the room and began inciting the group with tales of Narnia. Eustace was having a lot of fun playing pranks on Lucy and Edmund. As they observed the picture, the 3 of them became more focused, saying that it had a unique quality about it. The ship began to move and sail the restless sea as the waves and sea became real. The painting's objects began to move and the colors were unrealistic, bright, and natural. Erastus believed it was a trick that Lucy and Edmund were playing with until the enormous and chilly wave slapped them, causing the painting of the 2 of them to come to life. An ancient Narnian ship carried the 3 youngsters. They were confronted by a much older and taller Prince Caspian. He showed them about the ship, got to know Eustace, and then explained to them why they were here and what he had in mind for them while they were there. With the help of his team, he was able to tell them about his plans to save his father's 7 companions and the pact he made under Aslan's permission to avenge their deaths. Chew's main goal was to find Aslan's country, but he also hoped to sail the seas till the end of the world. Lucy, Edmund, and Eustace's adventure with Caspian's crew began there. Dorne was the first land they saw. Since the time of the White Witch, the hills of this island have been a part of Narnia. They settled on anchoring for a time before paddling their way around the cape. Eustace grumbled and complained the entire time, and he began to dislike the Dawn Treader as a whole. When the ship docked, he couldn't wait to set foot on land for the first time. To get to a higher point on the island, they had to climb a steep slope, but it was a much smaller hill. They reached the top of the mountain and could see the Dorne encircling them. A mile-wide canal divided Dorne from Philematha, Avarasat to the left of Dorne. Tight Harbor, a small white city, was also clearly seen. They kept walking and came across a pair of rough-looking men in a grassy valley some distance away. Hello, but Chu got into a confrontation with them soon after. As they learned more about these people, they came to the conclusion that they were slave traffickers who had also been responsible for their enslavement. When the youngsters were taken to a room with other captives, the pirate named Fox was introduced to them. It was Caspian and the person who bought him who proceeded to their hamlet, where the man said that he bought Caspian for his similarity to the former ruler of Narnia. The buyer of Caspian's wares turned out to be one of the 7 lords exiled by his uncle Miraz. To begin, he identified himself as Lord Byrne and instructed Caspian on how to attack Fox's ship while describing the island in great detail. When Caspian blew the horn, the Dawn Treader's crew knew exactly what to do. Caspian's supporters gathered in the harbor the next day. He overcame the guards to go into the castle to see the monarch. Later, he went to the slave market after speaking with Island Superintendent Grumpus about reorganizing island operations. Slave trade was outlawed and slaves were freed. Eustace returned to the ship with Edmund and hailed the progress he had accomplished with the help of the residents of Byrne. Having made a few small adjustments to the Dawn Treader, they stocked up on food and drink to survive a while. After a few days of beautiful weather, a storm rolled in one evening. For the following few days, they would have to use all of their power to keep the ship afloat. One morning, they woke up at a bay surrounded by cliffs like those seen in Norway. The water was crystal pure and as smooth as glass in the surrounding area. To restore the Dawn Treader to his normal state, the crew decided to take a break on land. While on board the ship, Eustace's mood hadn't altered much, and the storm, along with his feelings of enslavement, convinced him to flee. While he drifted away from the other passengers, he felt at peace. He was finally able to relax and take in the sights and sounds of the natural world around him. Upon realizing that the others had likely forgotten about him and disappeared, he panicked and ran back downhill, but he slipped and fell into a hole on the mountainside. Eustace realized he was lost when he found himself enveloped in a thick, rising fog. He spotted 2 smoke pillars emerging from a colorful chunk of rock as he stood by it while standing next to a rock. He began to cry as he realized it was a sleeping dragon and that he had made a mistake by fleeing. Suddenly, a dragon awoke and ran for the water, but he ended up falling into the lake as he tried to escape. Eustace fled into a dark tunnel, believing the dragon had died. He soon realized he was in the dragon's lair, and the following morning, he was greeted by the sight of a second dragon. Eustace became a dragon and was unable to communicate. A change in Eustace's mood and outlook on life caused him to reassess his previous interactions with the rest of the team. Lucy, Edmund, and Caspian planned a hunt for him while he changed his ways. When they saw a dragon lying and it didn't try to attack them, they realized something was wrong. They were able to recognize the dragon as Eustace thanks to a peculiar mode of communication, so they no longer feared him. While they began to embrace each other under the new circumstances, they were still unsure about their next step. Eustace was hiding behind a tree when Edmund went for a morning walk in the woodland. Following the lion to the brook, Eustace was able to remove the dragon skin and return to his human form. Eustace improved as a person, so they engraved their presence on the island into the stone and continued on their adventure. They fell into danger once more as they had to fight off an attack by a sea serpent on their ship. After they killed her with axes and swords, they went looking for more territory to celebrate their great win. They discovered the remnants of the combat on the coast, including guns and armor. In their quest for water, they came across a golden statue submerged in the stream. At some point, Edmund realized that the water in his body had magical abilities, transforming everything around him into gold. After seeing the disappearance of an enormous lion, they concluded that it must have been Aslan. Dragon's Stream was the name they gave to their escape route from this strange island. On another island, the grass had just been mowed, the trees had been aligned, and the air was clean and clear. This lengthy, sandy path ended at a house at its end. Lucy trailed behind the group as she labored to extract a rock from her foot. Even though she was startled by strange voices and felt the earth tremble, she has yet to see anything unusual. Lucy and her companions soon came upon a group of previously invisible islanders in want of her help in casting a spell that would restore their sight. She was able to break the spell after reading a book. To Lucy's amazement, Aslan arrived with the master Coriachin, where he recounted to her the story of the island's original occupants, the Blunapodes. Blunapodes were naive and careless, and they grew out of the hat like mushrooms, with only one leg. An island wizard offered Caspian a map of the island and the areas they had already visited after the celebration. Afterwards, he helped them fix the ship and wished them luck on their travels. They sailed on for a long time and eventually encountered a state of total darkness. When they heard a man's pleading cries, they rescued him and transported him to safety aboard ship. All nightmares come true in this gloom. His name was Lord Roop, and he warned them. They were able to make it out of the shadows after a few hair-raising experiences. In the dining room, they found 3 men asleep, unable to rouse themselves up. They discovered yet another island. Men began fighting and fell asleep because they touched an unclean knife, a girl holding an oil lantern stated. Her father, who shortly emerged, was the only way to break the hold. The girl's father encouraged them to sail as close to the end of the planet as possible, and then return after leaving one crew member behind. So they set sail for Aslan's country, leaving Chu behind. They arrived to an island where a lamb was waiting for them as the water warmed up enough for them to drink. Aslan appeared and warned Lucy and Edmund that this was their final trip to Narnia, and the lamb explained that the entrances to Aslan's land go outside of Narnia. Aslan dismissed Lucy's questions and kissed both of them on the forehead, returning them to the room from where they began their adventure. Caspian and the rest of his troops returned to the Ramandu Island, where the 3 sleeping men awoke and greeted Caspian with open arms. As a result of meeting and marrying the girl from that island, Eustace's character evolved into one that was more common and pleasant. Characters: Edmund, Lucy, Eustace, Caspian, Lords, Drinian and the rest of the crew. Aslan, a powerful and loving lion, served the function of aiding the young people who previously ruled Narnia. A powerful figure in Narnia, and a representative of the power of strength in general, is Aslan. The greatest source of good in Narnia was still Mr. Tumnus, who got elderly yet remained wise and strong. As a result of this, children grew to love and respect him, and he became an integral part of their lives. All of Narnia's existence rests on the shoulders of Aslan, Susan, Lucy, Edmund, and Peter. Luke, Edmund, Susan, and Peter. Children from the real world who undergo personality changes upon entering the land of Narnia. Narnia views them as strong rulers, despite the fact that they are just ordinary children. Everything in their lives changed after they entered Narnia through the closet. Narnia's freedom was at stake, so they fought with all their might, using their particular powers to defeat their adversaries. Because they fulfilled so many of the Narnians' hopes and desires by assisting Caspian when he requested it through the blowing of a horn, they are held in high regard and praised. Caspian. Since he was a child, he had a natural curiosity about Narnia's past and never got tired of hearing the old legends, even if he was barred from doing so. A previous nanny who was fired for teaching him Narnia stories was the only person who taught him about it. As Caspian's new teacher, Cornelius, revealed, Miraz has some nefarious plans for Narnia's future. Edmund, Peter, Susan, and Lucy were all moved by Dr. Cornelius to help save the people of Narnia. He is a symbol of a person's drive to achieve a specific objective through their actions. After becoming king at the end of the first novel in which he appears, he resolves to exact revenge on his father with the help of Lucy and Edmund. Clive Staples Lewis, an Irish children's author, is widely read. On November 29, 1898, he was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Clive's brother Warren was also a writer, although he focused on historical fiction, whilst Clive was drawn to fantasy. While living in England, Clive developed a love for Wagner's music and Nordic mythology, and joined the organization, the Inklings, after the death of his mother. Out of the Silent Planet and Perelandra are both published by him in 1938 and 1943, respectively. His final book in this trilogy, That Hideous Strength, is published in 1945, a year after the death of his close friend Charles Williams. The first of the 7 volumes in the Chronicles of Narnia, published in 1950, was a watershed moment for this gifted author. The movie adaptation of The Lion, the Witch, and the Closet, based on this book, was a big success. First, Prince Caspian is published in 1951, followed by The Dawn Treader's Voyage, which is published a year later. Joy David Mangreshman, the love of his life, enters his life in the same year, and he keeps writing. Following the publication of The Silver Chair in 1953, the rest of the series, A Horse and His Boy, Wizard's Nephew, and The Final Battle, were also published. His wife was stricken with bone cancer shortly after they were married and died in 1960. Even though Lewis was heartbroken, he persevered in raising Douglas, the son from his first marriage. Shortly before he turned 65, he succumbed to pneumonia and died in Oxford on November 22, 1963. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.